Hello and welcome to my daily coverage of the 2024 Tour Divide. My name is Josh Ibbett, and every single day for the next 2 or 3 weeks I'm going to be doing morning updates, having a look at the dots, giving a bit of insight into the race route, trying to find some stories on the road. I've got a few people out there who are going to be sending me updates, and yeah, let's join me on this journey and let's see where we go. Before we go any further, I just want to say a big thank you to the guys over at Redshift for sponsoring this coverage and making it possible. I'll dip into sort of their products a little bit as I go on through the next few weeks, but yeah, big shout out to those guys because their support makes this thing happen. So yeah, cheers for that. And also a big thank you to the guys over at bikepacking.com for supporting me on this. I was part of their Tour Divide preview last week, so have a look on their website. They've got a really good page all about the weather, the conditions that are expected. There's some route changes as well, so there's some details about that. And we had an in-depth discussion about some of the favourites, myself, Hannah, Alexandra and Neil. So check out that video, and hopefully that'll give you a bit of a backdrop as to the race and what's happening. And yeah, let's dive into it. So let's have a little look at the route. So I'm going to look at Ride with GPS to get into more detail. They've got this fantastic resource with all the route sort of points of interest and stuff. It's based on the 2023 route, but you can see it gives you a bit more detail as to where the resupplies are, where water spots are, where you might be able to sleep. This was put together by Sarah Swallow. It's a really good resource. However, there are a few route changes for the 2024 edition. They're mostly in New Mexico. So there's also an updated version of this, but it's a really good resource to look at, and yeah, really, really helpful. And it shows all the summits and things like that. So yeah, really good to look at and get some extra info around the race. The race itself is on Track Leaders. This is probably the original race tracking website. There's plenty more out there now, but to be honest, this is my favourite. This is reminds me of the good days watching the early Tour Divides. It's nothing fancy, but there's plenty of information on there, and yeah, you can really dig into it. So we'll be looking at that a lot over the next few weeks. So yeah, let's see what's going on in this race. So as you can see, we're 17 hours, 34 minutes in. I shall put it onto full screen right now. Yeah, all the riders spread out pretty much all the way from Banff all the way along. So the first section of the Tour Divide runs through Canada. It's about 250 miles to the Canadian border, the US border at Eureka. And it's not necessarily the toughest part of the route on paper. However, conditions can be tough. Obviously, the further north you are, the worse the weather tends to be. And if you've watched that bikepacking.com preview, you'll know that basically the weather's looking really unsettled up north. It's quite cold. The spring has been quite cold and quite wet in the north, especially Montana. So there is snow in places, and it could be muddy on some of the tracks. So it's going to be a rough few days to start for this Tour Divide. So we're going to see how that affects the race early on. Now there are a few favourites, and as you can see from the sort of order on the side there, the riders we looked at on the men's and the women's stage line up on the bikepacking.com preview. Liam Glenn, Ulrich Bartholomews, he's last year's winner. Alex Schultz, Anna Jaeger, she won the female race in 2022, and Justinas Levica, they're all right up there at the moment. And interestingly, there was a bit of a lead pack that set off this morning. Obviously, this is the first day of a 2,700 mile race, so you can't read too much into it. But Ulrich, Justinas and Laurens ten Dam, you may recognise that name if you follow professional cycling. They all basically took off at the front of the pack, and they reached Fernie first, but they reached it about 7 p.m. And then stopped. So then if we look at the race flow here, so the race flow essentially shows the moving time and the stop time. So a horizontal line here is stopped, and moving time, obviously the faster you're moving, the steeper the line is, and the slower you're moving, the faster it is. Sorry, the flatter the line is. You can see Ulrich and Justinas reached Fernie first, and they've just had a massive stop in a hotel. And then Liam and Thomas Fabian have basically caught up, not really had a sleep. It doesn't look like Thomas or Jimmy Ashby have slept at all yet. and they've basically snuck ahead. So it's kind of it's interesting. There's a couple of theories as why that could be, and I suspect it's due to the weather. But let's go back a step. Let's have a little look at the course and see what they've ridden over so far. We'll drop onto Ribe GPS, zoom in a little bit, and we can see that Fernie is the first major town basically on the route. There is some resupply further up, but starting in Banff and heading down to Fernie, there's not an awful lot. There's Bolton Creek, there's a small shop there, but you're pretty much on your own, running parallel in the mountains to sort of the main highways. But there's a big mountain range between you and any kind of resupply. There's a few climbs. There's Elk Pass, which is fairly steep. Which is where is it? Down here. So that's Coco Claims. So yeah, further north, which isn't particularly hard. It's just short and steep. But the big test is Coco Claims, which you can see this dog leg here. The old route used to go straight down the highway, but that changed, and basically there's a massive hiker bike. So let's have a little look. I've got some video actually from Sophie and Sahili sent some video over from previous years, and let's have a little look. So this is the youth hostel in the centre of Banff where the race starts. So this is from 2022, and as you can see, the gathering is outside the youth hostel and everyone sets off. They've introduced waves now, so basically that there's so many people starting the Tour Divide that they decided to, or the organisers decided to, or no, I think the National Park actually insisted that the organisers set riders off in smaller groups just to spread things out a little. So this was the first wave. This is Alex Pilkington. I managed to get my hands on this footage. So that was the first wave, nice and leisurely starting off. And as you can see, weather. I'm going to talk about the weather a lot. I'm British. Sorry about that. It's looking kind of overcast, and as I said, it's looking like there's going to be mixed conditions over the coming days. And as soon as you get up high in the mountains, it can be very unpredictable. And let's have another look at some of Sofian's videos. So I think this is over the top of Elk Pass. Now this is 2022. Again, the weather was pretty bad in 2022. And you can see here that it can get quite muddy. You can see the tire tracks. It dries, and if the sun comes out, it can dry quite quick. But if it's wet, it was really sticky. I've ridden this when it's basically been like peanut butter. When I toured out to the start in 2022, it was pretty grim. I've not heard direct reports yet from anyone out there as to what the conditions have been like on the ground, but I suspect it is very similar. And then Coco Claims, there's photos floating around on the Facebook groups showing snow a lot of the way up Coco Claims. To be honest, I wouldn't have thought it'd make an awful lot of difference. This was me actually in 2022. I ended up with Sofian, but you can see basically you're hiking up. It's a stream bed lower down, and then it's just a rough double track. There's not really any way you can ride up it, not efficiently anyway. And yeah, it's in a deep valley, so if there's snow in there, there's not always going to be much sunlight to melt it off. So yeah, I suspect that it was quite snowy, but I don't think it would probably slow you down too much. Hiking through snow or hiking over rocky terrain, if it's firm, that is, there's not an awful lot of difference. So that was Coco Claims, and then, as I said, the riders reached Fernie, and it looks like the leaders got in about 7 p.m. and they stopped early, and that's kind of quite unusual. Normally, most riders do push on through, certainly late. I mean, 2022, Sofian didn't stop for the first couple of nights, or not significantly anyway. So it looks like Ulrich, Justinus, Lawrence Temdam, they're riding conservatively, and then other riders, Liam, we talked about him in the preview on bikepacking.com. He's pushed through. He does look like he's slept now, 41 minutes ago, so maybe he's having a little nap, or maybe his tracker's just not working. It's hard to tell sometimes. So he's on, it's like Flathead Pass. And then, so these guys haven't really slept. Jamie Ashby, Australian, he rides rides for Curve bikes. Met him and the Curve crew out in South Africa for the Rhino Run a few years ago. They're great guys. We've got Dan Connell, Dirty Dan. He's up there. He's ridden this route 3 or 4 times now, I believe. So yeah, he rode it last year, so he knows what he's doing as well. Raymond Friedrich, a new name for me, so we'll have to have a look and see how he's going on. Ulrich, so he had a sleep he basically stopped at 7 and then started again 4 hours later, so 11 o'clock. So he had an early sleep. Now, there's a couple of theories as to why they'd be doing that. As I said, the weather is looking pretty grim. I'll put the weather layer on there, and you can see on windy, it's just cold air. And when you're in the mountains, if it rains up high, you know that's going to be snow. And it's looking cold all the way through Montana, pretty much, until you get basically further south. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it pans out. To be honest, it's probably a case of Ulrich and Justinas have decided to rest early, and then ride really hard over the next few days. Probably trying to get to somewhere like, I suspect, Columbia Falls. So let's look at on the Tour Divide route on Rub GPS. So Whitefish and Columbia Falls. You've got Red Meadow Lake. There's definitely snow up there. There was reports of it on the Facebook group. You've got Whitefish Divide as well. You can see on the elevation at the bottom here, there's 2 big climbs. And they've also got Galton Pass as well. Now, Galton Pass has definitely got snow on it. There's been reports of it. There was snow in 2022. So that's the big climb before the border. As you can see here, it's quite a high peak. So that's going to be tricky. So I suspect that some of the riders have taken an early sleep, and they're going to push through the bad conditions. And try and sleep somewhere around here in a hotel, playing it conservatively, and then pushing on later in the race. So it's going to be really interesting to see. As always, let's keep sort of this pretty much like a group discussion as well. So if you've got any comments or anything like that, put them down below. Also, if you know any people that are out there racing, then get them to drop me a message on Instagram. I love to hear from people. I've got a few people sending me voice notes and video updates through the men's and women's field. But yeah, if you've got any favourites, let me know. If you've got any intel, let me know. It'd be great to bring this to everyone. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how the race develops over the coming days. So keep posted. Don't forget to follow me so you don't miss anything. And I'll catch you all tomorrow. And hopefully we'll have a bit more insight into what did happen on that first night. And see how the dots are going. See if Anna Jaeger is still leading the women's field and pushing up with the men. I did see also that Megan Hakkinen was a pre-race favourite. She's in Fernie as well. So there's an interesting kind of plot line coming along. So let's see how it goes. I'll do another update tomorrow. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.